Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the 2024 UniSA 3 Minute Thesis or 3MT Grand Final event. My name is Sandy Orgeig, and I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies here at UniSA. This event tonight is co-presented with the Bob Hawke Prime Ministerial Centre, and it showcases the exceptional research of our PhD students as they distill their complex projects into just 3 minutes. Today, you'll hear from 6 of our finalists from across the university, each delivering a compelling presentation that highlights the significance of their research in an engaging and an accessible way. So get ready to be inspired by the innovative ideas and the impactful stories of our talented researchers. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting here today on the traditional country of the Kaurna people. And to formally welcome us, we are honoured to invite Auntie Elaine Nash with us today. Please join me in welcoming Auntie Elaine to deliver the welcome to country. Ngā mani. Answer that. Not. I'll begin with paying my respects and acknowledging all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past and present, to their perseverance in caring for country, culture and community, to the cultural knowledges they have left, to the lessons they have shared, and to the indescribable pain I know they have suffered. I also pay my respects and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that may be with us here today. Ngā Ngāri Elaine Nash, Ngā Gana Naranga Nyanki, Ngā Chutukutina Bukiana Anangu, Wamatandanya Anangu, Ngā Tuwangani Mani Nabudni. Translated. My name is Elaine Nash. Munato is my birth order name. I am 4th born child that is female. I am a Kaurna Naranga woman, and my family come from the Yorke Peninsula and Adelaide, and on behalf of Kaurna people, I say welcome. Welcomes to country, Yarta, have always held great significance for Aboriginal people across Australia, long before the first wooden ships reached our shores. Presenting a welcome is a timeless ritual where we ask our ancestors to watch over visitors, to guide them safely as they travel over country, Yarta, so that traditionally they could return safely to their own country. To wait to be welcomed onto country, Yarta, is a sign of respect and acknowledgement of her people, place, identity, belonging and connection. A welcome is far much more than words, song, dance or ceremony. It is a time for us to speak to ancestors, to let them know the visitor has been welcomed, that we have trust in them and trust that they will respect country, people and law. The traditional lands of Kaurna country, Yarta, begin at Crystal Brook in the north, some 200 kilometres, and travels down along the Gulf of St Vincent out into the waters, down to Cape Jervis in the south, another 100 kilometres, and across country to Mount Lofty Ranges, returning to Crystal Brook. And at the very heart of Kaurna country lays Tandanyanga, place of the red kangaroo dreaming, significant meeting place for conferences, ceremonies, trade, law for Kaurna and our neighbours. Europeans may know this place as Victoria Square. Our neighbours to the north are the Ngunnawal, Ngudgery to the northeast, Paramank to the east, Ramanjeri and Ngarrindjeri to the south, and to the west across the Gulf are the Narungga Nation. These groups have long associations with us as Ghana. They say we've been here for 65,000 years, according to Western science. But my ancestors, my community, have welcomed people onto Yata for not simply 65,000 years, but for 2,600 generations. And I choose to speak in generations because it is my family, my community, my history. The idea of 65,000 years comes from Western science. Our cultural knowledges provide us with our own data, and that is the ancient rock art, the songlines that crisscross country. It is in the fire stick management of country. It is in the stories that share with us how to care for country. It is in the night skies that guide us across country. It is in the people when we understand our responsibility to care and nurture country. The way we live now may be quite different, but our cultures are still important to us today. We have responsibilities to ensure Aboriginal culture, Ghana culture, the world's longest surviving culture, remains unbroken and continues strongly into the future. So now from the past and into the future, I remember the ways of my old people, my grandmothers and my grandfathers, protecting culture and ceremony. So now my time has come to represent Ghana, Miyuna, to practice the ways of my old people and to speak language to welcome you onto country. Nā mani, marawachanga Ghana Miyuna, na wangani mani na budni Ghana yatana, nature yungana dalya, nature yukana dalya, pudni adlu wadu. Thank you. Walk safely across the country. Look after her, because she will look after you. Nachalia. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that generous welcome, Auntie Elaine. Thank you. So I have a couple of housekeeping notices. So please note that this event tonight is being video recorded and live streamed on YouTube. And a reminder, a little bit late, to please turn your phones to silent. You will need them later because you're going to have to vote on your favourite presentation. So no need to turn them off completely. So on behalf of the University Council, the Enterprise Leadership Team, and senior leadership of UniSA, represented here tonight by the Honourable John Hill, Chancellor of the University, Pro-Vice Chancellors, Directors, Executive Deans and members of Council, and on behalf of Jacinta Thompson, Executive Director of the Bob Hawke Prime Ministerial Centre, I'd like to warmly welcome our distinguished guests, our judges, our valued donors, colleagues, students, friends and family, both here in the auditorium tonight and to those joining us online via the live stream. And of course, a very special and warm welcome and thank you to our 6 PhD student finalists. The 3 Minute Thesis Grand Final is a significant event in the UniSA and also the Hawke Centre calendars, offering a wonderful opportunity to celebrate our students and their remarkable achievements. Tonight, we celebrate the incredible talent and research of our PhD candidates who represent UniSA's diverse academic units and the broad spectrum of research undertaken across the university. This year's finalists are making a real-world impact with their people-centred research, addressing such important issues as inequalities in education, in the aged care services and the workplace, and advancing cancer treatment and care. For some, their journey has been deeply inspired by their own lived experiences. These finalists are among the very best of our more than 1,000 PhD students, and they have excelled in their individual unit competitions to get to tonight. Most importantly, they have gone above and beyond. They have worked incredibly hard and have pushed themselves beyond their comfort zones to master the skills of effectively communicating their complex research to a non-specialist audience in just 3 minutes. Effective communication is such a vital skill, and especially in today's world, where our researchers really struggle to have their voices heard amidst the sea of conflicting information, of personal beliefs, and the influence of often unreliable social media. We are immensely proud of all of our finalists, and making it here tonight is a tremendous achievement in and of itself. I'd like to especially acknowledge and thank Ms. Jacinta Thompson, Executive Director of the Bob Hawke Prime Ministerial Centre, for again co-hosting this event and including it in the Hawke Centre's popular and diverse public events program. A heartfelt thanks to all of the loyal friends of the Hawke Centre and any new visitors joining us tonight. It has been an absolute privilege working with the incredibly professional Hawke Centre team. A special thank you also goes to the many volunteers tonight that are ensuring that the event runs smoothly, and to our amazing audiovisual and IT experts, Adam Leahy and Shane McCarthy. Most importantly, I wish to acknowledge and thank my team, Dr. Kirsty Turner and Cara Zanotti, whose tireless efforts, exceptional organisational skills and attention to detail have been invaluable to bringing this event to life tonight. I'd also like to extend a warm thank you to Associate Professor Sally Plush, who has shared the role of Dean of Graduate Studies alongside me this year. It has been both a rewarding and eventful year, and we greatly appreciate her support during this time. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the dedication and leadership of Distinguished Professor Marnie Hughes-Warrington AO, Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research and Enterprise and Standing Acting Vice-Chancellor, who unfortunately was not able to attend tonight. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce your MC for tonight, the talented and accomplished Julia Lester. With a background in music, politics and education, Julia's career has spanned journalism, teaching and commercial radio and television. Most of you will likely know Julia from her 30-year career as an ABC broadcaster, where she worked as a journalist, reporter, interviewer, live host, producer and musician. Julia has graciously emceed this event several times for us in the past and is a great friend of the Hawke Centre and of UniSA. Please join me in welcoming Julia to the podium.
Sandy, thank you so much. It's really good to be back. It's great to be facing this audience tonight. May I just say to Auntie Elaine, what a grounding welcome that was tonight. I think because you took the time that you did, I had journeyed from what I know is going to come to us, which is contemporary research in a university, right down to here and now and past and future, and thank you for that. It's going to be a good night. As Sandy has mentioned to you, you'll be involved by voting later. You can either do it by device, or if you don't have a device, lucky you, you can use good old-fashioned paper later. May I firstly thank and welcome our judging panel. I'll just sort of indicate generally, if you'd like to turn around and wave, you're welcome. Nicole Rantanen-Reynolds, Adelaide University Transition Council, who'll also be presenting the awards later tonight. Noah Schultz-Bayard, Director of Strategic Partnerships with the Australia Institute, based here in Adelaide. Ruth Ambler, Deputy Chief Executive of the Department of Human Services. Thank you very much, Ruth. And Peter Stevens, Director of Enterprise Partnerships, UniSA. It's a hard job because, as you can understand before we've even heard the speeches, it's not like this is one area of work, and we're looking at a lot of things. As Sandy's mentioned, it takes a lot of courage, I think, for a PhD student whose work is to delve into an area in great detail, very specifically in that area, to then say, well, what I'll do now is talk to people who don't know anything about what I'm on about. That really takes courage, and as someone who's spent a great deal of my life in the media, it's incredibly valuable, of course. It's very special to find people who are prepared to do that, let alone who can do that, speak to us. So here's the competition, to take that complex research and make it understandable to the rest of us. I had forgotten that this whole idea began in Queensland during a drought. I know, it seems a bit of an oxymoron, doesn't it? But it happens. Do you remember the times we've had them here when we were encouraged to have 3-minute showers and put the little egg timer? I remember a picture of Nick Xenophon, I'm sure, in the shower, waist up. And so the then Dean of Graduate School, Emeritus Professor Alan Lawson, said, that's a really good idea. 3 minutes for a thesis. I don't quite know how the showers and the thesis bit got connected. I asked my husband and he said, human inspiration. AI won't do that. And I said, I'm not sure that you're right there. So the 3MT challenges our speakers tonight to pull their ideas together and their discoveries and their excitement and their energy to be concise for us, a non-specialist audience. So from a history that goes back to 2008, it's extraordinary. There are now over 900 universities around the world in 85 countries doing the 3MT. That's really impressive. The rules, we like rules. A single static PowerPoint slide is permitted. No slides, no animations, no movement, no electronic media, no video, no extra props, no umbrellas, no flowers, no lab equipment, no singing, no dancing, no breaking, I'm sorry. The presentation has to be exactly maximum of 3 minutes, and people who go over will be disqualified. And we count from the moment a presenter starts. Our panel and their decision is final. Our panel is looking for really good communication. Did we understand what the person was talking about, our level of comprehension of their level of comprehension? Were they engaging to us? Were they clear? Did we understand their background, their design, their strategy, their conclusions, their outcomes? Was it clear? Was it appropriate for us as a non-specialist audience? Did the PowerPoint slide help? And were they enthusiastic? I think they're going to be incredibly enthusiastic. One of the things I love about this event is every time I've been involved, you get to meet 6 really smart people. I was going to say young people, but that's not necessary, who are prepared to do this and who are doing really important work. You are involved. You will be voting for who you find answers all of those criteria for you, and we'll tell you about the voting later. Just another reminder, please make your phone silent, but you will need it later. There will be 3 awards given tonight. We'll tell you again more about that. One is the one that you will vote for. Once the presentations have been given, the judges will disappear and they will do the difficult thing of deciding. And then we will vote for our favourites. And then there'll be a Q&A, which is always a really good part of this event. This is time for our participants who've done the really hard, scary bit to go, oh, thank goodness that's over. And they'll come and sit down and you can ask them questions yourself. So, let's do it. Are we ready to start? Let's do it. Our first competitor in the 2024 UniSA 3-Minute Thesis Grand Final. I heard someone, it was Eddie, saying, let's do this, yes. Amanda Kelly, UniSA Creative, Designing for Equity in Education. Amanda.
Raise your hand if you know a child impacted by autism. Quite a few, thank you. These children are attending our mainstream schools, assuming they're getting the same education as their peers. We are failing to provide children with autism an equal chance to develop their basis on which the rest of their lives are built, failing to fulfil their potential. Few researchers have included the voice of children with autism in design studies. I'm changing that. By setting myself up in a primary school for the entire year, I've built trusting relationships with children and educators. Tapping into their lived experience, I'm guiding them through steps of co-design to uncover their daily challenges and the solutions they hold at their fingertips. Believing schools are the best place to lay down a good foundation, our governments provide additional funding for students with disability. To access this funding, schools must provide evidence of how they've supported a child for the previous 12 months. Most commonly, this funding is used as a silver bullet, employing a classroom assistant to work alongside a child. Now, schools run at a frantic pace. As a teacher, there is rarely time to prepare your assistant for lessons. The assistant, unlike the teacher, requires no formal education training, yet often becomes the one modifying work for a supported child. Believing schools... No, we've done that one. I'm very sorry. I've actually lost it. I did not think that would happen. Believing schools are the best place, we've done that bit, lay down a solid foundation. No, I have lost it. I'm very sorry, I didn't think that would happen, but it has.
Amanda, thank you. It's the risk we take, isn't it, really? This is the courage that I've been talking about. Let's move on to competitor number 2, Elizabeth Wells from UniSA STEM, Bibliotherapy, helping cancer patients feel better through books.
I'm going to read you a story. As I hold the binoculars to my eyes, the wind whips through my hair, and I see the thing I've been dreading. Heading in my direction is a white car. I know the men who are inside. I met them both in the pub last week. They were friendly to me then, but they won't be friendly now. They are the police, and they've come to arrest me. You want to know what happens next, don't you? That's the beauty of reading, especially fiction. If we kept reading that story, you might feel like the wind is whipping through your hair too while dreading the police. But imagine you get to the part where the police are approaching and you can't remember how the story started. That's common with cancer-related cognitive impairment or cancer fog. And that's because cancer fog impacts memory, concentration, visual processing, thus reading. Yet bibliotherapy, or reading for therapy, helps with many mental health conditions, chronic pain and loneliness. So could we restore the therapeutic benefits of reading by listening rather than struggling to read to oneself? In this project, I've been exploring the impact of regular read aloud sessions on the emotional well-being of people undergoing cancer treatment. Reading material was matched to each person and the warmth of human presence was used, rather than ask people to try and operate audiobook technology in the midst of their cancer fog. I read to people weekly for 6 weeks at various locations. Well-being was measured before and after, and interviews were held. The program was found to reduce stress, anxiety and depression, and it increased well-being. Some key themes were relaxation, mood lift, increased self-efficacy, and it helped with pain and nausea. It provided comfort and respite for loved ones too. My dream is to see bibliotherapy offered in cancer and palliative settings. I'm going to finish with my own little story. Tom had never been a regular reader, but he had liked to help research. He had grade 4 brain cancer. One week he was unwell, so I read at his bedside humorous material, his favourite. His wife heard us laughing. The next week, though, she sent me a message. He wasn't expected to live much longer. But she wrote, "I wanted to let you know how much he enjoyed your reading. It was a joy for me too. My last memory of Tom is of him laughing. Reading together is such a simple idea, but it can make a big difference." Thank you.
Thank you, and will you now welcome our next competitor, Elaine Nash, UniSA Business.
Imagine you own a business, but you can't hire enough workers, so things aren't getting done. What if you were offered an employee who was exceptionally loyal, rarely absent and highly productive, who could take on repetitive tasks with a high degree of accuracy, who'd give 100% of themselves, deliver strong results and bring in customers? They'll also impact the mood of your business through their contagious enthusiasm, their willingness to work and their positivity and joy. You jump at the chance, right? Who wouldn't want someone like this in their business? What then if you were told they had intellectual disability? Would that change anything? Unfortunately, for many employers, it does. Although we have more than enough accumulated evidence about the benefits to business that people with intellectual disability can bring a job, their employment rates remain remarkably low. Why? Employers thinking they don't or can't work, that they might be unsafe in the workplace or somehow negatively impact the business. None of these worries are based on evidence. My research is about how to support employers to gain the benefits to business that people with intellectual disability can bring, whilst also mitigating any costs. I interviewed CEOs, managers, disability sector leaders and advocates, and I created a role for a person with intellectual disability who helped me source the views of other people with this label. I found 5 things that businesses can do. Adapt their recruitment, selection and induction processes, provide training and development for all employees, nurture a leadership style that embraces diversity, create a job for a person with intellectual disability by carving it out of other roles, which also support skilled technicians in the business to get on with their tasks and get more done, and adapting communication in the business to be more accessible and inclusive. For example, translating written material into an easy read format. The really interesting thing I found out about these 5 findings was that if you got it right for the worker with intellectual disability, you'll get it right for every other worker and customer. I'm really hoping that my research will help businesses solve what doesn't get done around here, whilst also creating opportunities for people who've had very few. They have led segregated lives in segregated settings, and this needs to change. As my colleague with intellectual disability told me, belonging is the most important thing about life. Everyone being born wants to be part of a community. My research will help make that happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Our next competitor, Edmund Hypolite, UniSA Education Futures. Will you welcome Edmund?
Good evening, everyone. For many of us in the social sciences, particularly education, we come to our research from a place of wanting to understand and tell the story of something not being right in the world, something being off-center, in need of fixing, or just not being. In the wake of the murder of George Floyd and the global Black Lives Matter movement that arrested the world's attention in 2020, I was invited into my daughter's high school to speak to the student body about systemic racism and white supremacy. When the talk was over, I was thanked by a head teacher. And when I inquired how the talks amongst the teachers and staff were going, I was informed that they were trying to find ways of discussing it in ways that people didn't feel uncomfortable. But come on now, is there ever a comfortable way to have an uncomfortable conversation? My research seeks to understand this teacher discomfort and the seeming refusal of teachers to discuss systemic racism and black trauma until ways can be found to mitigate white discomfort. My research, therefore, explores black belonging through a decolonial approach to teacher racial literacy, cultural understanding, and personal identity development through a term-long process of group conversations and workshops and personal reflection. Teachers will explore their role in creating racially inclusive schools in which black Afro-diasporic students can find belonging. The head teacher's response to me immediately reminded me that students have no power over their school environments. They do not create culture. They respond to culture and create the necessary subcultures and environments that enable them to survive negative school spaces. They cannot belong unless the belonging is gifted and invited into. If, as the educator Ferreri said, education is an act of love and therefore an act of courage. And the feminist bell hooks echoed that the next step on love's path is communication. And my research will explore the ways in which teachers can build better internal pathways and frameworks that enable them to communicate with this socialized and racialized discomfort that seems so prevalent in the education system. Students know. They know when and where they belong, and they also sense that unless it is an inclusive and protected belonging that they're being invited into, they will never be seen. And a student that is never seen can never be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Edmund. Our next contestant, Aayushi Notra from UniSA Clinical and Health Sciences. Will you welcome her?
Let's travel back in time to when we were 18 months old. It's hard to recall those early memories, isn't it? For some, it may be a blur of your first step or first word. Imagine, at this age, when life is just beginning, facing a battle with cancer. Neuroblastoma strikes this early, although it accounts for only 7% of all childhood cancer cases. It claims 15% of young lives lost to cancer. The harsh reality of the current treatment strategies is that they come with toxic side effects, leading to a poor quality of life and early death. This makes the need for finding newer, safer, and effective treatments even more urgent. But why does neuroblastoma arise? It starts when early nerve cells called neuroblasts, fail to mature into sympathetic neurons. The cells get stuck in immature states due to a block in differentiation. Think of it as a garden where certain plants don't bloom. The process of differentiation is controlled by DNA-binding proteins called transcription factors. Just like gardeners control conditions required for plants to bloom, transcription factors control gene expression required for cells to mature. In my research, I will be looking at how these transcription factors block differentiation, leading to neuroblastoma. I'm taking a different route. I am a data detective for biology, and as bioinformaticians, we dive into complex biological puzzles with computational approaches. Using single-cell data, which is akin to examining each plant in the garden, I can model different scenarios, like turning off or boosting transcription factors to see what effect would that have on cell maturity. By doing so, I will be able to pinpoint disrupted transcription factors, understanding which is essential to understand the root cause of cancer. But it's not that simple. Even if you know the cause, finding the right treatment is extremely challenging, stemming from the fact that for some patients, the cancer goes away on its own, while for others, it may turn aggressive. Why cancer behaves differently among patients? We don't know yet, but through my research, I aim to find the molecular factors driving these differences, as they will act as first steps in finding those effective and less toxic treatments. Because every child deserves a chance to experience those early memories without the shadow of cancer.
Thanks, Aayushi. And to Sarah McMullen-Roach, UniSA Allied Health and Human Performance. Will you welcome Sarah?
Imagine that for more than half your life, it's been illegal simply to be who you are. Your identity has been criminalised, at times pathologised, and you have lacked protection under law. But you're a survivor. You have done what many who share your identity did not have the privilege to do. You've made it to old age. And now you are needing support. Support that is predominantly still run by the same institutions that led the discrimination against you. For at least 1 in 10 older Australians, this takes no imagination. This is their reality. This is the lived experience of LGBTI+ older adults, a reality that would have been mine had I been born a mere 25 years earlier. The recent Royal Commission into Aged Care found that services were discriminatory and not appropriate for LGBTI+ older adults. There were countless stories of neglect and abuse against this population in care. And yet, of the 148 recommendations that came out of the Commission, not one addressed the needs of LGBTI+ older adults. Why? Because when it comes to this population and what they need to age well, we remain woefully in the dark. My research aims to shine a light on this gap so we can better understand the experiences and needs of LGBTI+ older adults as they navigate aged care. To do this, I have gathered the global literature capturing the perceptions of over 3,000 LGBTI+ older adults. I'm analysing Australia-wide data on how this population use aged care, and I will be speaking with LGBTI+ older adults about their lived experience of care. The literature told us that LGBTI+ older adults experience a pervasive fear when considering aged care. A fear so powerful it renders them invisible and forces them into the closet. A fear so consuming that for many, suicide and voluntary assisted dying were seen as preferable options to the use of services. The Australian data reflects this fear. So far, I've found that LGBTI+ older adults are either avoiding aged care assessment or hiding their identity when assessed. They are twice as likely to go directly into residential care, desperately avoiding help until they are backed into a corner with no other option. Next, I will connect with LGBTI+ older adults. I want to understand their experience, what truly supports them, and what must change to create a better, more inclusive system. So once more, imagine something. Imagine an aged care system where people are not forced to age fearfully, but supported to age fabulously. It is my ambition that for LGBTI plus older adults, this takes no imagination. This will be their reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and may I take this opportunity to ask you to thank all of our participants tonight. Don't you just love the breadth of the work? It's fabulous. All right, the next thing is that we now say to our judges, thank you very much. But you'll be led quietly away to a beautiful room somewhere to deliberate, and we look forward very much to seeing you on your return. This is one of the joyous times as an MC when I say, please get out your phone, rather than please don't get out your phone. It's all pretty clear. And if you don't have a phone or device on you, do just raise your hand. Thank you. We do have paper voting appropriate. Oh, you even get a pencil. How good is that? Please leave your hand up so our volunteers can find you. Just a reminder, if you do need some assistance, just raise your hand. I think everyone's been dealt with. Okay, sure. Just one more reminder, if you're wanting a paper vote, just raise your hand. Not working? You'll have to wave at a volunteer. Is that okay? So our volunteers are returning to collect your paper vote if that's the way you're voting. Just hold your bit of paper up in the air. We have a vote to be collected down the front, by the way. Someone's coming, I think. So perhaps this is the last chance to say, if you're needing your vote collected and it's not been collected, please just hold it up. Volunteers are running up the stairs towards you. Tara, there's one right up the back. Up on the left. Okay, sure. Thank you very much for your participation. I think we're all collected. And if you're voting online or voting electronically, we will now close the voting. We'll assume that's been done. Tallying will take place in mysterious rooms far away. And thank you very much for giving that consideration. It's quite a hard thing, isn't it? I mean, in some ways it's easy to say, I loved that talk, but did that actually go with the criteria? We so look forward to hearing your response. And so just a reminder that there will be 3 awards given at the end of this evening. The first prize, obviously, and that UniSA entrant goes on to compete again. There'll be a second prize, and then there'll be a People's Choice Prize. All of the prizes also have a financial research grant aspect. So thank you very much for being part of that. I mean, in some ways, you/we are the real audience, aren't we? May I now invite our participants up onto the stage. So there are volunteers who are wonderful at charging up and down stairs, who will find, let's just see where the volunteers are, if you wouldn't mind, with roving microphones. Thank you. If you have a question, you might like to raise your hand. Is everybody settled and comfortable? And we have one mic, which will be beautifully just charged along. And our first question. Thank you.
Thank you all for your presentations, but I'm going to ask the question that everybody has in the room. Amanda, what happened? What was your... Because it's fantastic. It absolutely got us in.
Oh, that was an earlier question. I wasn't expecting that yet for a little while.
I don't mean it rudely whatsoever.
No, I'm not taking it rudely. I honestly have no idea. Just lost it. The words just disappeared, so.
Amanda, would you just take a moment to give us the nutshell at the end?
Have you got 3 minutes?
No, I haven't. My 3 minutes are all taken up, mate. The specifics of your research.
Okay, so in a nutshell, we have classroom assistants in classrooms making decisions about the level of support that children with autism, in my particular research, need, where in actual fact they're not the ones that have the education qualification. So, I'm being ridiculous. So my research is looking into developing an app that allows teachers to communicate with supported students, providing them daily schedules and learning activities, along with assigning a level of support for each activity so the student receives information straight from the teacher and the assistant knows precisely how much support to provide that student. Funding requires on schools providing evidence for children for the previous 12 months, so it's retrospectively. So this app will actually capture the evidence that's required for funding.
I think that's a perfectly good way of saying it, and thank you. May I also say that on the way to developing an app, Amanda also decided she would start designing furniture because the chairs weren't right. So she spent a long time doing that and then thought, actually, no, that's too specific. I need to go to a bigger level. That's when she started app designing. PhDs are long creatures, aren't they? Thank you.
Good listening, Julia, thank you.
Pardon?
Good listening.
Let's have another question. Yes.
Thank you. Elaine, I was really interested in your talk and especially the 5 takeaways and how they are support the broader workplace as well. I was keen to understand if any workplaces have introduced those measures for you or you've seen results in and what kind of scale or particular industry where there's been significant success.
Oh, thank you for the question. At this stage, it's still very much developing the paradigm of those 5. So one of the things that I've found in the research is that if you've got those 5, as I said during the talk, then you'll actually get it right for other workers as well. So to answer your question, we don't yet have these full 5 introduced, but if we did, I think we'll see a lot more diversity and inclusion in the workplace, not just for people with intellectual disability, but potentially for other groups that come from diverse and inclusive backgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
To all of you for wonderful presentations, and I just want to say that all of these research areas are so impactful and so relevant, so congratulations to all of you. I have a specific question for Sarah. I noticed that your acronym doesn't include a Q. Could you tell me a little bit about why that is?
I really love that question every time it gets asked, and I'm really glad somebody asked that, so thank you. So because I'm working with the older population, generally the Q is omitted from the acronym because it was quite a derogatory term, and it's still considered to be so by many of the older population. So part of it's out of respect for the population I'm working for. Like personally, I don't mind the word, but it's about the population I'm working with. But also when we did our consumer reference groups and our consumer feedback groups, I was listening to the recordings and I heard, I feel really safe that she left the Q off when talking about some of the research, and so that really affirmed for me at this stage it still needs to be out of the acronym when speaking about older people. I think that will change in years to come, but for now, yeah, keeping it out.
Thank you.
Yep. I'd just like to say good luck, judges. It's going to be a very, very difficult decision. I've got a follow-up question for you, Sarah. Really interesting piece of work that you're doing and much needed. Aged care is something that is very dear to my heart. You're doing research on a hard-to-reach population. I'm really keen to hear about your recruitment strategy and how is it that you're identifying these people and engaging them in your research? Because as you said yourself, they're underrepresented, particularly from a voice perspective.
That's a really good question as well. A lot of it has been working with communities. So I have been working with so many different communities, engaging with them. You know, my name's fairly known now, getting to know people
there'll be a lot of snowballing, I assume. Like, I've got contacts in every state now, kind of just getting out there and doing a lot of work with people and a lot of groundwork and, you know, things that aren't necessarily part of your PhD, but it's about building those relationships. I think with these populations particularly, we have to be aware of, you know, that streetlight effect, that we're not just looking where the light is, you know, the people who will put their hand up. So it's just keep trying, keep reaching out to people, and people will point out blind spots to me, and they have so far, and it's been really helpful that people have been that generous. They're like, you missed this group, and I'm like, thank you, now we'll focus on that. So slow, ongoing commitment, yeah.
Thank you. There's a gentleman down the front. Okay, we'll come back to you in a moment. Is that all right? Yes.
Thank you. My question is to Elizabeth Wells. I'm really curious to hear more about your research, and thank you for presenting it to us this evening. What I'm really keen to understand from you is if it is part of the scope of your research, which is whether different genre of books lead to different responses and different outcomes in patients, and whether you've seen any early indications of that in your book reading so far.
Thank you for the question. The choice was deliberately uplifting material because there are obviously topics to avoid in this context, topics like chronic illness, death, will reading, that kind of thing. There was a lot of humorous material or stories with a twist, problem-solving kind of stories for one or two individuals who liked that. The idea was to choose material that people could immerse themselves in, because that gave the distraction, the escapism, the relief from nausea and pain. So that was highly successful. So thank you.
Thanks for the question. Thank you. Where are you? In the middle. There we go.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, we've got two. Beg your pardon.
Two going?
May we go with you first, and then we'll come to you second.
Thank you for all the wonderful speeches. I just wanted to say something to Eddie. I worked with Aboriginal people for 29 years, and I had a big question for myself, which was I racially prejudiced? And my answer to the question was, would you swap places with that person? And I wouldn't swap places with some of these Aboriginal people. And I thought that education is probably the solution. So, well done.
Thank you.
Eddie, do you have a comment you'd like to make about that?
There's a story in each and every one of us, written on the pages of our lives in the ink of experience. And although you wouldn't swap places with that person, that doesn't make you racist, but you know the way they are racialized, and you know you don't want that for yourself. So that in and of itself tells you a story. You know? And so I think that's what we do. We just understand the way we are taught to see somebody's story, rather than trying to figure out their story. Figure out why you read their story in the way you read their story. And I think if we start there, then we'll be in an honest place.
It's such a nice question, thank you. Part of the research that I did involved speaking to an operational manager from a graphic design company who actually had, most of the graphic designers were people with intellectual disability. And what I find really interesting with this work is that our expectations of people with intellectual disability are really quite low. And there's this cycle of low expectation that occurs to people from school into work. And so part of it is actually saying, you know what, people with intellectual disability are really good for business, and there's a body of research that spans 30, 40 years around the globe that says that. So bringing some of that in and saying, let's change the narrative for this group of people. So to answer your question, yes, there are certainly a lot of people with intellectual disability working in the creative world. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely question.
Hi, thank you very much. I thought it was all wonderful. I've got a question for Edmund. You mentioned that you started your research by visiting your daughter's high school. I just wondered how early you would start your research. Would you look at teachers in primary schools as well as secondary?
I'm focusing mainly on secondary schools. I think it needs to start as early as primary schools, but my head is within the secondary space. But I think it does need to start as early as primary schools, because kids become racialized that early. They begin using language that they don't understand the connection of racism to early, very early. I was called a monkey by a 6-year-old in a reject shop, a couple of months ago. And I understood that he didn't understand, but he understood that he could racialize me that way. But my focus really is within the secondary space. Yeah.
Thank you.
Question also for Eddie. At the outset of your talk, you mentioned teachers looking for a comfortable way for uncomfortable conversations. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, what do we do in a society which is now notoriously averse to uncomfortable conversations? How do we go about changing that, or is it in fact generational?
I think we have to, as my brilliant supervisor Mel Back always says, you have to create a pedagogy of discomfort and then go over the hill. You have to create a pedagogy. We do it with our children. Well, you know that unless you eat this, you can't have that. So let's figure out how you enjoy it so that you can have that. We got to take them over the hill. There ain't no way around it. There ain't no way around it. We've all got to go over the hill, because I think at the heart of it, if we don't, then we continue to dehumanize each other. And at the heart of this whole thing is how we either humanize or dehumanize each other on basic and greater levels. So there is no way. I said to the head teacher, well, there is no comfortable way to have an uncomfortable conversation, but it can be had with understanding, with professionalism, with empathy, but and a commitment to change. But we cannot avoid the discomfort, because it's an uncomfortable conversation. But there is love, and there is growth, and there is change on the other side of the hill. So let's go up the hill together. Let's go up the hill. Let's go up the hill.
Right up the back.
Hi. You're obviously all going to be doing a lot of public speaking in the future. Could I suggest... there are two organisations out there to help you. One is called Rostrum, the other one is called Toastmasters. Please look them up.
Just amazing research that you were doing. My question's for Aayushi. Why did you choose neuroblastoma to focus your research on?
Thank you. That is a really good question. While I was looking for a PhD project in cancer, because in my master's I did my research on cancer, I was pretty interested in the area. I kind of came across this project which was listed on the UniSA's website, and it says neuroblastoma. And I thought it was something to do with the brain or something, because the word neuro kind of takes you back to the brain. But then when I Googled about it, I was like, oh my God, this is a pancreatic cancer, and I didn't know about it. So that kind of was the first point where I got really interested in it. And so when then I read about it even more, I found it really distressing that such small children kind of have cancer, and they do die before their 6th birthday. So that was really disheartening. So I really want to do something in the space, and hopefully I will be able to. Thank you.
We have time for one more question, and I can very excitingly see our judges returning, so let's give them a chance to settle while we have our final question.
Hi, thank you all for your amazing presentations. My question's for Elizabeth, and I'm afraid it's a scientist in me coming out, a STEM scientist. Did you have like a control arm where you've got, say, somebody spending the equivalent amount of time just talking to the person? So is it the person-person interaction, or is it the reading of the book and the story and the escapism? And I love reading, so I love escapism.
Thank you, great question. This group is notoriously hard to recruit, and during the time of COVID, there was no confidence we would get enough people. As it was, we barely met our recruitment target just without a control group. Sorry, what was the second part of the question? The social, it wasn't just, I mean, because there was no control group, we cannot say 100% it wasn't the social visit. However, there were indications that it was the bibliotherapeutic intervention. For instance, the people who had trouble with small talk because of their cancer fog, they were relieved. The focus was on the story. You know, there was no pressure. There was no anxiety. What are we going to do when Liz comes? You know, everyone knew it was a story, and, oh, Liz, what are we reading today? You know, the focus was very much on the bibliotherapeutic intervention. So thank you.
Thank you for your questions, and thank you to the judges. I'd just like to do one more round, I think, for our wonderful competitors. Someone said to me last week, is it just the mums and dads that come along to this? And I said, no. People are really interested. It's like a footy match, you know. That's a compliment, by the way. This is a little bit unusual, and I think it's just gorgeous. May I share with you some of the judges' comments? We will all be interested. Edmund, wonderful presenter and great passion. Elizabeth, love the story aspect and the clear presentation. Aayushi, great analogy and slide to simplify a complex topic. Elaine, clear and passion for topic. Sarah, engaging and a great balance with academic and human side. Excellent delivery. Amanda, introduction was great, had us hooked. How good's that? Pulled us in and keen to hear more. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, let's do it. I would like to ask Nicole Rantanen Reynolds to come and do the goodies. I think if you stand on this side, and we'll do it obviously in reverse order. So first of all, this is the really exciting one, I think. I would like to present the People's Choice Award, which goes to Edmund Hypolite. Congratulations, Edmund. Our second place winner for the 2024 UniSA 3MT Thesis. Can I wait any longer? Congratulations to Aayushi Notra. Can I just, by the way, remind you that the People's Choice winner receives a $1,000 research grant. The second prize is for a $1,000 research grant. And the first prize, the UniSA entrant to the 2024 Asia Pacific 3MT final, in other words, you have to do it again, and a $3,000 research grant. So will you share with me in congratulating our first place winner, Sarah McMullen-Roach. You've all been just wonderful. You've been a fabulous audience, really, truly. I mean, I know you have been, but you really have been. You've been so involved. If you're not here with us, but you're watching remotely, thank you for being part of this tonight. I would particularly like to thank UniSA for continuing the support for this really wonderful award. It does really bring the work that you do to the public, and I think that's so important. May I also thank the volunteers and all of the people behind the scenes. And finally, thank you, our audience. You've been just terrific. Thank you so much. And that's it for this year. We'll see you next year.